Hi, I'm Danielle Bassani with Time for Change Kitchen. Today we are preparing a delightfully flavorful cauliflower masala, a dish that was taught to me by one of the chefs at Mint Cuisine of India from Boone, North Carolina. This dish makes a beautiful presentation for any table, but just for fun, this year I am using it to stuff a pumpkin for a beautiful holiday presentation, which I'll show you how to do that in another video. Before we begin making our masala, we are going to take a 14.5 ounce can of tomatoes and puree them. We are going to place them in a large saute pan with a large enough surface area to allow us to quickly boil off the excess liquid of the tomatoes. What we are attempting to do is to reduce this tomato puree by half. We are going to end up with a thick sauce, somewhere between a thick sauce and a paste. This really intensifies the flavor of the tomatoes, so they will be that much more delicious when we add them to our masala. We have this on a fairly high heat. We can see it is beginning to boil rapidly around the edges, and that's what we want. We do not want to scorch it, so we will be stirring it periodically. You can see that it is boiling away, and that's just what we want it to do. We want to keep stirring it and keep scraping it around the edges of the pan so that it doesn't scorch. You can see already that it's becoming firmer and less of a sauce, more paste-like. We will continue cooking it in this way for about 10 minutes, stirring occasionally. I like to shake it down so that the tomatoes cook evenly. You can see now, as I push the sauce away from the sides, how thick the sauce is becoming and how little liquid is left in it. So we've been cooking this approximately 10 or 11 minutes. You can see how thick it has become. It is more like a paste, and there's no longer any of the tomato liquid bubbling up around the edges. So this is done. We have been cooking this all of 12 minutes, and we have a very concentrated tomato sauce, or somewhere between a sauce and a paste. Now we'll set this aside and add it to our cauliflower masala at the appropriate time. We are going to begin making this dish, cauliflower masala, by making sure we have all of our ingredients prepped, our onions chopped, our tomatoes and carrots sliced, and all of our spices and other ingredients measured out and ready to go. This process is called mise en place, or some chefs aptly call it our mess in place. This makes the process of cooking complicated dishes so much easier. This dish is not difficult to prepare as long as you have everything you need at hand. In preparing for this dish, you can pre-roast the cashews and also make your tomato sauce by pureeing a 14.5 ounce can of tomatoes and cooking it down for 10 to 12 minutes or until it is reduced by half. However, if you're organized and have room on your stovetop, you can do all of these steps at the same time as you're preparing other parts of this recipe. These steps can be done a day ahead if it's more convenient for you. We have also put our rice on to cook according to the instructions I've provided. So now the first thing that we're going to do is heat the pan until a little water shaken on it makes the droplets sizzle. Then we're going to add our chopped onion, which is 1 large onion or about 3 cups. It's important to use a pan that's large enough to accommodate all of the onions that you've put into the pan. We want the onions to caramelize. We do not want them to steam. And so you need to be able to push them from one part of the pan to another. And in the beginning, they'll start releasing their juices. And as they do that, and as they tend to stick to the bottom of the pan, you should stop and scrape up the caramelization that, or the browning that is sticking to the bottom of the pan. And as you move the onions around, it will pull that caramelization onto the onions, and rather than scorching in the bottom of the pan. So now that the onion has released its moisture, we're going to start adding the spices. We're adding 1 teaspoon each of cumin seeds, black mustard seeds, and coriander seeds. We'll get that stirred in. Then we'll add 2 pods of black cardamom and 3 pods of green cardamom. Continue scraping the brown spots on the bottom of the pan. We do not want this to scorch. Now we'll add in our bay leaf and our cinnamon. Continue to move the onion mixture around, scraping up any of the caramelization on the bottom of the pan. When it becomes too heavy and too resistant to scraping, then we need to add a little bit of water to clean up the pan. It will pull the caramelization off, but we'll let the water mostly evaporate before moving the onion mixture back on top of it. And this will pull that caramelization, that sweet flavor and that lovely golden color back onto the onions. And that's how we saute without using oil. We can achieve the same effect without putting any oil in our plate at all. You don't want to put too much water on it because we don't want to steam the onions. We just want to pull the caramelization off the pan, all of that lovely brown pieces of onion that is sticking to the pan. And it's important not to let this scorch. Once it's developed a scorched flavor, you've pretty much ruined the dish and you have to start over. Be sure to get it up on the sides as well. It tends to want to cling to the sides, and we can't allow that to scorch either. So continue moving the onions around in this fashion until they're a nice golden brown. So as you see, the color is deepening and it's become a lovely golden brown. We are going to add some more of our spices. We'll add ginger and garlic. This is 1½ teaspoons of each. We'll stir these in and continue cooking them until they are translucent and very, very fragrant. You can see how much the onions have cooked down and how rich and golden brown they are. Now we are going to add our crushed tomatoes that were pureed and cooked down to about half of what they originally were. This has given me about a cup of a thick tomato sauce that was cooked down from a 14½ ounce can. So now we're going to add our ground spices. We have a teaspoon of ground coriander, a teaspoon of ground cumin, a teaspoon of paprika, sweet paprika, and a teaspoon of ground turmeric. I always try to remember to add black pepper right after I add the turmeric so that I don't forget it, because black pepper really helps to increase the bioavailability of turmeric, which is a very, very healthy spice. And we'll add a little bit of water just to get everything stirred in and incorporated. We'll be adding more water, up to a cup or a cup and a half as we go. This will end up being a sauce, not a paste, so add water as you feel that you need it. Continually scrape up the bottom of the pan. We don't want anything scorching. And now we're adding a tablespoon of garam masala, which is an Indian spice blend. This is looking beautiful, just exactly the way it should look. So we're going to reduce the heat now to a simmer and cover this and simmer it for about 5 minutes, stirring occasionally. So it's been 5 minutes and we have stirred it several times throughout the process, and now we are picking out the whole spices. Those are the black cardamom seeds or pods, the bay leaf, the cinnamon stick, and now the hard part is finding those little green cardamom pods. It won't kill you to leave it in there, but if somebody bites into one of those, it really is a very strong burst of flavor. So we want to pick them out if we can. And I believe we had 3 in there, so that's what we're looking for. We'll find them. I have to go to my trusty spatula now. That'll be the easiest way to find it. There we go. There's one. So I'm going to transfer this to another container. We're using a measuring cup. And this we are going to transfer to a blender to blend all of this together. And we found that last cardamom pod. Great. And after we transfer this, we're going to wash this pan and bring it back to the stove and start working on our cauliflower. So we're going to take this red sauce and transfer it to the blender and we're going to blend that until it's a nice creamy consistency. So we've returned our clean pan back to the stove, and we're going to add a little water, a quarter to a half a cup, and we are going to add our carrots, our sliced carrots, which is about a cup and a half, and 4 cups of cauliflower florets. We're going to cover these and steam them for just a few minutes. So while the cauliflower is cooking, we're going to start toasting our cashews on the stovetop. We have a small pan, and we've added a quarter cup of raw cashews. This is on medium-low to low heat. We've been steaming our cauliflower and carrots for about 3 minutes, and now we're going to test them for doneness. You can see that the carrots are fork tender and the cauliflower is as well, although both of them are showing a little bit of resistance when you push the fork in, and that is exactly what we want. In the meantime, we are flipping our cashews because we do not want them to scorch. You have to pay close attention to your cashews because nuts tend to scorch very easily. At this point, we're going to add our peas and our tomatoes, and we are going to cover it and continue to cook it for another 2 minutes. Now you'll note we're going back to our cashews and we're going to flip them again and make sure that they are going to brown and not scorch. We've steamed this for about 2 minutes, and now we are adding the tomato onion mixture. We're adding a little water to the Vitamix to get the rest of the mixture out of the Vitamix and to add some more water to this dish because this sauce is really quite thick. Now we'll add the water and the rest of the sauce mixture back into the pan, and we'll stir that in and incorporate that along with the cauliflower and carrots. We'll toss our cashews a bit. We don't want those to scorch. And they're looking pretty good. Now I'm adding in cayenne pepper. This is entirely optional. If you don't like it spicy, don't add it. This is a half teaspoon of cayenne pepper, and this still is pretty mild in terms of spiciness. I like mine rather spicy, and if I were just cooking it for myself, I would probably put a teaspoon in. You would not believe how good this smells. We're going to toss our cashews, and they're looking pretty close to being done. They've got a nice brown color without being too dark. And they're also beginning to smell very fragrant, very much like toasted nuts. So we'll stir these nuts in and allow this to simmer uncovered for maybe 2 or 3 more minutes. And then we're done. So there you have it, a beautiful cauliflower masala that smells wonderful and tastes even better than it smells. I'm Danielle Bassoni, serving up whole foods for whole health.